Hi students, welcome to today's class. In today's class, we are going to discuss UGC NET Sociology, uh, Unit 7, Environment and Society. So we are going to discuss a particular part from this unit, which is environmental movements. So this is a very important topic, environmental movements. You can expect at least one or two questions from this part, like questions. Mostly the questions will be like match the following, or you have to select options like combinations of options or something like that. So at least you have to know one, two, or three movements from this part. So in this part, I have included some major environmental movements. So without further delay, let's get into the class. So what is an environmental movement or ecology movement? An environmental movement or an ecology movement is a social movement that aims to protect the natural world from harmful environmental practices in order to create sustainable living. So, the ultimate aim of an environmental movement or ecology movement is to create sustainable living conditions. And how they intend to do that? They intend to do that by protect the nature or the natural world from harmful environmental practices. And the origins of this environmental movement can be traced back to the time of industrial revolution. So this environmental movements basically started as a response to the increasing smoke pollution in the atmosphere during the industrial revolution. So as a result of industrial revolution, the number of industries or factories increased, and it caused the increase in polluted air, or it caused pollution. So that was the first form of environmental movement. It started as a response to this increased pollution caused by industrial revolution. So these are the major environmental movements we are going to discuss in today's class. And all these environmental movements, or all these major environmental movements, emerged in India, particularly after the 1970s. So most of these, or almost all of these major environmental movements emerged in India mainly after 1970s. So these are the major environmental movements in India we are going to discuss today. Apiko movement, Bishnoi movement, Silent Valley movement, Chipko movement, Narmada Bachao Andolan, and Jungle Bachao Andolan. So the first one is Apiko movement. The Apiko movement, or it is also known as Apiko Chalwali, it took place in Uttara Kannada and Shimoga districts of Karnataka. Uttara Kannada and Shimoga districts of Karnataka in September 1983. You have to remember the name of the movement. If it have an alternate name or other name, you have to remember that. You have to remember where it took place, the year which it started or it happened, the goal or reason of that movement, and who gave leadership to that movement. These are the important key factors you have to remember about each of the movements. So about Apiko movement, it is also known as Apiko Chalwali, and it took place in Uttara Kannada and Shimoga districts of Karnataka. In which year? In September 1983. And what was the aim of this movement? It was aimed to protect the Kalsa forests. So the aim of the movement was to protect the Kalsa forest. So this Apiko movement is also known as South India's Chipko movement. That is as an important important point. Maybe there is chances for questions like which movement is known as South India's Chipko movement? The answer is Apiko movement. So you have to remember that. So the word Apiko, it is a Kannada term. Apiko in Kannada means hugging or to hug. So now I think you got the relation between Chipko and Apiko. Chipko also means to hug. So likewise, Apiko also means hugging in Kannada. And this movement was led by a famous environmental activist Panduranga Hegde. But he was not alone. Along with Panduranga Hegde, there were a large number of women and youth from a village called Saklani and surrounding villages. They were also part of this movement. So, so the main aim of the Apiko movement, I already said, was to protect the Khalsa forest. But the main aim of the Apiko movement was to ban the cutting of green trees and conserve the Khalsa forest. So to ban the cutting of green trees and conserve the forest. And the movement, this Apiko movement continued for 38 days. And this forced the state government to finally take action on the demands of Protestants. And but later, the state government withdrew the order for the cutting of trees. But anyway, the movement promoted afforestation in deforested areas. So the impact of Apiko movement was great in Karnataka. It was a very impactful environmental movement. So this is all about Apiko movement. Once again, you have to remember where it happened. It happened in Karnataka in 1983. The aim was to protect the Khalsa forest. And who gave leadership? Panduranga Hegde gave leadership to this movement. Now, once again, there is another important point to remember. This Apiko movement also reintroduced Gandhiji's method of protest of non-violence, and it also introduced the mobilization for a sustainable world, which means this movement ultimately aimed for a world which, or for a place which man and nature can coexist. So basically, it aimed to protect the nature and in order and thereby create a world or place in which man and nature can coexist. So our next movement, this is our next movement, which is Bishnoi movement. So this Bishnoi movement took place in Kejarli village, Marwa region of Rajasthan. Where it took place? It took place in Rajasthan, specifically in Kejarli village, Marwa region of Rajasthan, in the 1730s. In the 1730s, so it is quite old movement. And what was the aim of this movement? To protect the sacred Khejri trees. To protect the sacred Khejri trees. And this Bishnoi movement was among the first movements to organize in support of environmental conservation, wildlife protection, and green living. So it was kind of one of its first movement in support of environmental conservation and wildlife protection. And who gave leadership to this movement? Amrita Devi. She was a local female villager, and she hugged the trees while people came to cut down these Khejri trees. So Amrita Devi hugged the trees and she told others to do the same. But the soldiers keep cutting the trees and there were more than 300 members of the Bishnoi community who laid down their lives to save trees. But after this incident, the king of that place issued a strong royal proclamation prohibiting the cutting of trees in all Bishnoi community areas. And later, this Bishnoi movement has inspired many other environmental movements in India. So this is about Bishnoi movement. It took place in Rajasthan, Kejarli village of Rajasthan in 1730s, and the aim was to protect the sacred Khejri trees. And it was a very old movement. It was the first movement in support of environmental conservation. And who gave leadership to this movement? Amrita Devi. She was a local villager. The next movement is Silent Valley movement. So the Silent Valley movement took place in the Palakkad district of Kerala in 1973. So it took place in the Palakkad district of Kerala in 1973. And the aim of this movement was to protect the tropical evergreen forest. To protect the tropical evergreen forest, which is also known as the Silent Valley. So this Silent Valley, it is a unique ecosystem which is rich with various kind of species of flora and fauna. And it is home to many endangered species of flora and fauna. And Silent Valley is quite famous for the lion-tailed macaque. It is a highly endangered primate found only in the Western Ghats region of India. So the Silent Valley is very, very important place uh, related to biodiversity. So in 1929, the British government identified the Kuntipura River in Saidantri as an ideal location for electricity generation with the help of dam construction. So the British government decided to build a dam in order to generate electricity in the Kuntipura River in Saidantri location. And in 1958, KSEB means Kerala State Electricity Board. And in 1958, KSEB proposed a hydroelectric project in this river and it was sanctioned in 1973. But this hydropower project is a threat for the park's high diversity of species. It is a This proposal is a high threat for the park's biodiversity. And this issue sparked the Save Silent Valley movement in the 1970s, which later culminated after the project's cancellation. And this Save Silent Valley movement was first started by the local people, but later it was led by the Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, KSSP. You have to remember this. So, who led this Save Silent Valley movement? Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad, KSSP. And in this movement, many environmentalists joined and public opinion was raised to a higher level. So it got a higher level of recognition or a national level recognition. And as a result of this movement, the Kerala government passed an act regarding the Silent Valley Protection Area known as the Protection of Ecological Balance Act of 1979. So this is important. So which act got passed as a result of Silent Valley movement? The answer is the Protection of Ecological Balance Act of 1979, and this act was regarding the Silent Valley protection area. So this is all about Silent Valley movement. It took place in the Palakkad district of Kerala in 1973, and the focus of the movement was to withdraw the hydropower project which is planned to build in the Saidantri River, which would be a threat for the park's high diversity of species. And as a result of this movement, the Protection of Ecological Balance Act got passed in 1979. Next movement is Chipko movement. I think this is the most famous movement when it comes to environmental movements in India. So the Chipko movement took place in the Chamoli district of the Garhwal division of Uttarakhand in April 1973. So where it took place? It took place in the Chamoli district of the Garhwal division of Uttarakhand. If it is difficult for you to remember this village names or district names, at least try to remember the state which it happened. So for Chipko movement, it happened in Uttarakhand. And the name Chipko comes from the Hindi word to hug. Chipko means to hug. As the movement got its name, Chipko movement, as the movement involved hugging trees to prevent them from cut down by loggers. And this is one of the most famous environmental movements in India, as I already told you. And it was a type of non-violent protest based on Gandhian ideology. So the prominent leaders of the Chipko Andolan were Chandi Prasad Bhatt, Sundarlal Bahuguna, Gaura Devi, Suraksha Devi, Sudesha Devi, Bashni Devi, and others. So this is important. Prominent leaders of Chipko movement: Chandi Prasad Bhatt, Sundarlal Bahuguna, Gaura Devi, Suraksha Devi, Sudesha Devi, Bashni Devi, and others. There were a lot of women were part of this movement. So both men and women participated in this protest in very large numbers. So the primary reason behind this movement was excess deforestation, which caused or which resulted in the disastrous Alakananda River floods of July 1970. So this flood, which happened as a result of deforestation. So this was the basic or primary reason behind this Chipko movement. And this Chipko movement gained widespread attention in India, and both nationally and internationally it got widespread attention. And it brought attention to the adverse effects of deforestation and commercial logging on the environment and local communities. And the success of the Chipko movement led to the formulation of different kinds of or various environmental policies and laws in India, like the Forest Conservation Act of 1980, the National Forest Policy of 1988. So these are all the results of Chipko movement. You have to remember this. These acts, the Forest Conservation Act of 1980 and the National Forest Policy of 1988, these are the results of Chipko movement. So this is about Chipko movement. This is very, very, very important. Chipko movement is a sure question. Okay. So please study in detail about Chipko movement. Now let's move to our next movement, which is Narmada Bachao Andolan. So this Narmada Bachao Andolan took place in the states of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra, and it was against the construction of large dams on the Narmada River, and it took place in 1985. So where it took place in three different states of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra, and it was against the construction of large dams on the Narmada River. So the Narmada River has some specialities. It is the largest west flowing river which starts from Amarkantak, Madhya Pradesh and flows through Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat and Maharashtra. And the length of the Narmada River is approximately 1,312 kilometers. So who gave leadership to this Narmada Bachao Andolan? The main leaders were Metha Patkar and Baba Ante. But there were also other people were involved in this movement also, but the major or main leaders were Metha Patkar and Baba Ante. So after independence, the Narmada Water Disputes Tribunal approved the Narmada Valley Development Project. So this Narmada Valley Development Project is a big project which included 30 large dams, 135 medium dams, and 3,000 small dams. So in 1987, the construction of the Sardar Sarovar Dam in Gujarat started. But there was a problem. Even though the construction of the dam was already started, there were no arrangements for the rehabilitation of local villages. So, as a response to this, in May 1990, the Narmada Bachao Andolan organized a 2,000-person 5-day protest outside Prime Minister VP Singh's residence in New Delhi to convince him to reconsider the project. And over 6,000 men and women began Narmada Jan Vikas Sangharsh Yatra, which is also known as Narmada People's Progress Struggle March. You have to remember this. Narmada Jan Vikas Sangharsh Yatra, Narmada People's Progress Struggle March. When did this happen? In December 1990. So Narmada People's Progress Struggle March were conducted in December 1990, and this over 6,000 men and women marched over 100 kilometers. And these protestants used different tactics, including non-violent protests, hunger strikes, and legal battles to draw attention to the negative impacts of these dam projects on the environment and the local communities. So this is Narmada Bachao Andolan. So where it took place in the states of Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra. And it was against the construction of large dams on the Narmada River. So Narmada is the largest west flowing river, and the main leaders were Metha Patkar and Baba Amde. And then Narmada Jan Vikas Sangharsh Yatra, Narmada People's Progress Struggle March in December 1990. So hope it is clear. Now to our last movement, last major environmental movement in India, Jungle Bachao Andolan. So Jungle Bachao Andolan, it is also known as Save Forest Movement. It took place in Singhbum district of present-day Jharkhand in the 1980s. So it took place in present-day Jharkhand in 1980s, and it was a protest against the government's plans to replace native sal forest with commercial teak plantations. So it was a protest against the government's plans to replace native sal forest with commercial teak plantations. And this decision has the greatest impact on the indigenous tribal community because it violates their rights and livelihood. So the indigenous tribal community led a life depending on this native sal forest. Their livelihood were based on that forest. So this decision of the government to, you know, replace the sal forest with commercial plantations uh, had greatest impact on this indigenous tribal communities. So in various versions, this movement, Jungle Bachao Andolan, was widely spread in places such as Bihar, Jharkhand, and Odisha. And this movement gained widespread support from the public and the media in Bihar and other parts of India. And also, it contributed to the formulation of various environmental policies and laws in the state. And the success of this movement, so this movement was a success, and the success of the Jungle Bachao Andolan inspired many other similar movements across India. So it is regarded as a significant milestone in the history of environmentalism and community activism in India. So this is all about Jungle Bachao Andolan. It took place in Jharkhand in the 1980s, and it was against the government's plans to replace native sal forest with commercial tea plantations. And this movement was widely spread in places such as Bihar, Jharkhand, and Odisha. So here I have included all the movements briefly. So let's go through this just go through this. So the first movement was Bishnoi movement. It took place in Rajasthan in active years. It started in 1730s. Leader Amrita Devi, and the reason was to prohibit the destruction of sacred trees of Kejari. The next movement was Chipko movement. It took place in Uttarakhand in 1973. Leaders Shanti Prasad Bhatt, Sundarlal Bahuguna, Gaura Devi, Suraksha Devi, etc. And the reason is to safeguard the Himalayan forest ecosystem from destruction. The next movement is Silent Valley movement. It took place in Kerala, Palakkad district of Kerala, active years 1973. Leader, even though it was started by the local people, later it was led by Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad. And the reason was to protect the Silent Valley and its diverse wildlife from the hydropower dam project. Next one is Jungle Bachao Andolan. It took place in Singhbum, Jharkhand, 1982 to 85. So, who gave leadership to this movement? Tribal communities. And it was a protest against the government's plan to convert sal forest into commercial teak plantations. Next movement is Apiko movement. It took place in Karnataka in 1983, and the main leader was Panduranga Hegde, and it was to prevent the cutting of trees by forest department, fellers, and contractors. Last one is Narmada Bachao Andolan. It took place in 3 different states: Gujarat, Madhya Pradesh, and Maharashtra from 1985 to 1909. Major leaders Medha Patkar and Baba Amdel. It was to evaluate the justifications for the Narmada River development projects. So that's it. That's all for today's class. Hope it was clear and useful. So all the best for your upcoming exam. So kindly go through all these classes before going to attend the exam. It would be really helpful for you. And for those who are preparing for next year's UGC NET, which is UGC NET 2024, Professors Academies admissions are open for UGC NET 2024 sessions. So we are providing classes for these subjects, which is listed here. For admission related queries or for admission registration, you can contact these numbers. So that's it. All the best for everyone. Prepare well. All the best. Thank you.